strong and peaceful, wise and brave, fighting the fight for the whole world to save. We, the people, will ceaselessly strive to keep our great revolution alive. Unfurl the banners, look at the screen. Never before has such glory been seen. Oceania, 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 'tis for thee. Every deed, every thought, 'tis for thee. Every deed, every thought, 'tis for thee.
Where that 2 + 2 = hits me every time.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, Pete.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I knew I'd boomer. A warm welcome to all our friends and fans to Movie Watch Live. We return after an extended break to bring you one of the most powerful and hard-hitting movies ever made. The most authentic movie adaptation of arguably the most famous dystopian story ever written. The 1984 movie version of the novel 1984, directed by Michael Radford and starring Sir John Hurt as Winston Smith, Richard Burton as O'Brien, Susanna Hamilton as Julia, and Cyril Cusack as Charrington. The movie's famous not only for its cast, but its sincere respect for the source text. And as the closing credits declare, this film was photographed in and around London during the period April to June 1984, the exact time and setting imagined by the author George Orwell. So tonight we're joined by Ralph, who tonight visits us in the avatar of Big Ralph, the noble leader of the glorious revolution. Good evening, Comrade Big Ralph. How are you?
Good evening, comrade. I hope that hope you're not doing any wrong think there.
Yeah, I don't want to be arrested for silently wrong thinking.
I'm watching and listening.
Please
and
don't arrest
reading
me
your
for
mind.
silently wrong thinking. So I don't doubt you're familiar with the story, obviously, the message of 1984, but have you seen this movie adaptation before?
It has been a very, very long time. Very long time. But it seems fitting to come back to it. It's important to review cautionary tales from time to time. So I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. And also joining us tonight is Tony, not again, Winston. And likewise, Tony, of course, I know you'll be familiar with the story of 1984. All too familiar, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Just look out the window, turn the TV on, or what's going on social media, pretty much. But have you seen this movie adaptation before?
Not for 32 years.
Yeah,
I saw it in my senior year of high school. I watched it. We read the book of Brave New World, and I was like, I enjoyed that book, even not the subject matter, but it was a well-written book. And I thought I should really, really watch 1984 as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So I had a fun double of dystopian hilarity.
Yeah, just for laughs.
Yeah, made me feel so warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah,
read Animal Farm to your kids.
Yeah,
and I think I also read V for Vendetta around the same time as well. So.
Yeah. Bit of Fahrenheit 451, just
Oh yeah, no, I went through all of them. No, I literally went through all of them, just dystopian. Yeah, futuristic horrors.
Absolutely, all too documentary like these
now
days.
Now it's dystopian present horror.
It's interesting that the director Michael Radford had actually done documentaries before he did this movie.
Oh, you can tell.
So it's so much in there, isn't it? And also joining us tonight, I can see in the chat, we have Cosmetti. And good evening, Cosmetti. She says,
Yay, Cosmetti.
Hello.
Hail and hail Oceania, indeed. Sister, comrade, sister. And so tonight, I should explain, we'll be mainly focusing on the movie itself as a standalone work of cinema. We'll touch upon the themes and characters in 1984 and obviously how significant they are, but an in-depth discussion of the source text in Orwell's novel, that's a whole stream on its own. We wouldn't really be able to do full justice to that. So we're primarily discussing the movie itself tonight, which obviously, we'll touch upon the themes of 1984 of the story, but maybe later we could do a separate stream for the book itself. So I should explain our show for new viewers and how we present our format. This is a commentary channel for fans of cinema. Movies, obviously, a huge part of our experience. We appreciate there's a wealth of amazing films out there that we can appreciate together. We can always find something new in them. Watching a movie together, discussing movies is a way of doing that. Some fans join in live, some listen to the recording later. Whether you like commentaries, reaction videos, or even just having a stream on the background like a podcast, we do appreciate you being here. So please join in if you come in live to the chat. And so relax, enjoy the show. Throughout the stream, we'll give timestamps. We'll describe what's going on the screen, together with trivia and facts, and even movie insights that you might not have heard before. So without further ado, let's get started. Now we have this very efficient, and it's all about efficiency in Airstrip 1, isn't it, comrades?
We spared no expense.
It's all about the efficient use of time and motion. So we have this very decadent, capitalist, glittery countdown, so that at the idea is at the end of the countdown, when you see the big flashy arrow, you would start your copy of the movie, and I'm sure I will again boomer up my own copy somehow or other, and be tried. I'll be tried for the thought crime of boomerism, whatever happens.
And remember, if you miss time it, you'll be taken away for re-education.
Yes, I will. To the Ministry of Love. It's
Hugs,
all
kisses, and
too
kittens.
real.
Yeah. The thing is when I wanted my dystopian future, I was shooting for Mad Max. I wanted chaps, fast cars.
Yeah.
Instead, we get
Assless
1984.
Oh, yeah. Well, I live in Australia, so we're already there. So.
Yeah, pretty much. Tony can actually take it where it was filmed. You can, like, if you want, you can get like a, like an off-road vehicle or whatever. Just replicate the whole thing.
Yeah, and the best I can do is I can take you guys, if you come to visit in the States, I'll take you to Rotor filming locations. So.
Nice.
That movie's great.
I'm in for that. So let's get started. So I'm going to go ahead with the countdown now. So if you're watching along with us, if you've got your own copy of the movie, be ready, and we'll get this going now. So let's go.
3, 2, 1.
All right.
It was very boomy bass in that one, wasn't it?
MGM Lion.
Yep.
Roar.
Better turn the levels down on mine.
Meow.
What's it saying on the screen?
Who controls the past? Controls the future. Controls the present.
Yes.
Controls the past.
Indeed.
Yeah, who was it? I think it was Norm Macdonald that said, reading all the history books, isn't it amazing? The good guys always won.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Norm Macdonald.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goodness me.
Genius.
This is our land.
Oh, wheat fields. I feel like I'm in a Zack Snyder movie.
Except it's not slow-mo.
Yeah. Extreme slow-mo.
Extreme slow-mo wheat.
Oh, there's so many things Snyder does we could make fun of, but yeah,
These are our people.
definitely the Soviet era vibes from the beginning of this. The Soviet
There's a
era
lot of it.
propaganda movies,
Oh yeah.
all the way down to, I believe, that
We're going to get the 2 minutes of hate.
Oh yeah, 2 minutes hate. Holy cow! Yeah.
So Goldstein's going to come along in a minute. So we're seeing scenes of glorious warfare
Eurasia.
against Eurasia. And although there's a lot of obvious Russian communist imagery in this, I don't believe Orwell was talking about Russia taking over Britain. What he was talking about was this. He unfortunately had this as the inevitable consequence of human society. But he's saying this is happening to everyone. If you think about the agreement, what was the name of the agreement at the end of the Second World War? With was it? So it was Stalin, Churchill, and Eisenhower. Roosevelt. Sorry, Eisenhower died. Roosevelt.
I'm sorry. No, not ahead. Roosevelt.
I think it was Ike, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was. Are we talking about the Potsdam Accords?
Yeah.
Because I think Roosevelt was there for that, and then yes, Roosevelt died before the end of the war.
Yeah. So 2 minutes of hate, which is in today's society as well. If you go on Twitter,
yeah,
the 2 minutes of hate. I love looks like my backyard.
I love the comparison of the people screaming in the background, the people up front just staring blankly, like
yeah.
But they're just
O'Brien
all their souls have been just dragged out of their body.
And that's the first contact between Winston Smith and O'Brien. O'Brien looks back at Winston because he can already see that Winston isn't hateful enough. He's not shouting or anything.
And I'm sure Orwell pulled from various things, like the people being as into it as possible to make a big show. Oh, I'm super patriotic, and but yeah, it's a disturbing visual.
It is, and it's all too true now with the echo chambers that we have.
Yeah.
All to thee, Oceania, all to thee. The Glorious Revolution. It's interesting, the words to the song.
Big.
The words to the song, is that in the book, the song, or was it written by the director? I'm not sure. But the words to the song include elements of all of the major powers' patriotic songs. So there's bits from Star Stripes, there's bits from the Soviet anthem, there's bits from British anthems and French, etc. So if you look at the words of the Oceania song, it's very clever because what they're saying is this can happen anywhere.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things. Like I don't know. I assume it's the same for you guys, where in America we were convinced, something like this could never happen here,
and it's happening now.
Yeah. So people can argue about who represents what, but there's definitely people that aren't thinking straight anymore.
This is where well, goodness me, look what this looks like. Anybody who's working a call center,
Yeah.
straight away.
Oh Lord, yeah.
Or
Recognize this.
just in an office. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
also strikes me the similarities between this and Brazil,
Yeah.
because Brazil was filmed at the exact same time, and it was Gilliam's version of 1984. Now, this production was rushed. It doesn't
Get it
look
out
rushed.
first.
Yeah, they did a really good job to do a good job of the movie and get it out by October. It was filmed in 94. It was out in October. 40 years old. I should have mentioned at the start, really. 40 years old this month, ladies and gentlemen. And here he works in the Ministry of Records, or Mini Rec. And you can see how the movie Brazil copied a lot of this, because exactly the same job was being done by the main character in Brazil. Gilliam was famously furious that Michael Radford got this movie out on time, and Brazil wasn't until 1985 Brazil came out.
Mm. Which version?
Yeah. So you can see on the screen there where his job is to make a negative into a positive. So instead of the chocolate ration going down, they're just going to say that it's gone up. And who's to say it hasn't gone up, because they control all information. And we know today in the media, this is exactly how media works today, which is why they hate Twitter. Because the regime has lost control over all of the standard routes of information.
I do love how everything is just filthy.
Yeah.
Like the office is filthy. Like it's like no one sweeps or dusts or anything like that. No one cares. Everything is just, there's just stuff, rubbish everywhere. It's just, society is barely hanging on.
Well, exactly. It's that atmosphere of prolonged war. The war. The idea is the Second World War never came to an end. It's just been continuous war all this time. And on the screen is the three traitors who are being tried or have been tried. And of course, this is Chekhov's gun for the end of the movie, without giving too much away. But the confessions of Rutherford, Aronson, and Jones, based on the real Soviet show trials of the 1930s, where they had charges fabricated and confessions. And they were even accused of being funded and working for Tolstoy, because Goldstein's a version of Tolstoy, who was a major threat to Stalin, which is why they eventually assassinated Tolstoy. Did I say Tolstoy? I said Tolstoy 3 times. Boomer mistake. Trotsky, I meant to say. Tolstoy was not assassinated. He was a playwright.
Yeah. Trotsky get the ice pick in the back.
I need to go for re-education now, comrades. Yeah, Cosmetti raises a point of eurythmics, and there's a massive controversy which overshadowed the movie after its release, which was that the backers of the movie, who it was backed by Richard Branson's Virgin Movies, or Virgin
Film. So at the beginning, yeah.
And he thought it needed the Eurythmics soundtrack to give a broader appeal. And so Muldooney's original score was completely rejected. They'd even already done a print of the movie with the original soundtrack, which was more of an orchestral soundtrack. And they had to destroy all of them along with the original optical soundtrack negative, because it was decided that this was the soundtrack they needed, and it majorly pissed off Radford to the point that he excluded the movie from a number of different award ceremonies and it overshadowed the movie. And then later on, Eurythmics didn't even know any of this, but it was a decision made by the money behind the movie.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that.
So this is a dream sequence which reoccurs throughout the movie. And Winston is remembering his childhood, memories of his childhood. He has the Comrade future version of Karen. The Karen instructor who seems to be able to see it. It's basically like a Teams meeting, Microsoft Teams meeting. She can see him on the view screen.
Bend lower.
Watch me.
And nothing.
Anyone under 45 is perfectly capable. I'm 39. I've had 4 children. So it's this constant control, isn't it?
I was going to say, nothing like living in filth, dystopia, starvation, and then, well, you can't touch your toes. Shame on you.
Yeah, you've got to get up and do your exercises straight away.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point, Cosmetti, because that would be problems if I touched my toes first thing in the morning.
First thing in the morning, yeah.
Usually I wake up to a dog bouncing off my bladder. That's what gets me rolling.
Yeah. This is Gregor Fisher, who plays Parsons. Parsons is his neighbor who tries to do everything on the outside to appear to be a complete sycophant, but even that's not good enough, as we find out later on. But Gregor Fisher is famous in Britain for the character of Ramsay Nesbitt, and outside of Britain, I don't think you'll know who that is.
No, I haven't caught that one.
It's a very, very funny show from Scotland.
Okay.
So if you get the chance to watch it, I'd recommend it.
Oh yeah, shoot me a note. I'll see if I can dig it out.
Yeah, you can probably find it on YouTube now.
May have to get a translator.
Yeah. So razor blades, like a lot of things, are in short supply. Because one of the ideas,
cigarettes,
one of the ideas in 1984 is this constantly maintained state of emergency, which we saw in COVID, keep people desperate and items in short supply, and it keeps them distracted. Keeps them tired and distracted. And so they have to go into the proletariat area for things like razor blades.
And you bring up COVID, going back to, in the United States, a major thing was paper products, paper towels, toilet paper. Interestingly enough, when we were looking at a dock worker strike a month or so back, we had another run on it. Suddenly, you couldn't find toilet paper. So
the beginning of COVID here, that was nuts. Everyone just went crazy for toilet paper.
I think they mentioned the phrase "christened" just before there, so they're blessing their weapons. So I think partly this is another story that might have inspired Warhammer 40,000, because in the grim future of 40k,
that makes sense.
The
Grim,
entire
very grim dark.
human society is focused on the war effort, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's and the government has become the state religion, or the emperor at least.
Yeah, the God Emperor.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure this influenced 40k.
Oh, the amount of stuff that's been influenced by, like, when you just think, even just modern films where they just went, yeah, let's just do a take on 1984 and, like Equilibrium with Christian Bale and, as I said before, V for Vendetta and things like that. It's like,
The influence of even that, and of course, John Hurt played
he
the
was
big
great
brother
in
in that, didn't he?
Yeah.
So massive influence. Because Matty says, "Good job on making everyone look vitamin D deficient."
Yeah.
So we're at that point as well in modern society as well. Pretty much this is just like today in a lot of ways. I know it's become a cliche to quote 1984, but it's pretty much here. I've got to mention the conversation just before there, which is about the new dictionary of newspeak.
Oh yeah.
And how it's becoming, how it's a wonderful thing that it's becoming, the English language is being reduced down to eventually down to a few words. Because if you can't articulate what you think, you can't think.
It's funny, like this is going to sound like it doesn't have anything relevant, but trust me, it does. The 1990 Flash TV series had an episode where there was a time traveler who froze himself in the 60s, and when he woke up in 1990, like some kid used the term "bad," meaning good. And he went, Orwellian doublespeak, and it was like bad means good, yeah. And I was like, man, that's so clever bringing that up in a TV show in 1990.
Yeah,
but definitely. It's like yeah,
and you don't realize it's so subtle.
Yeah,
it is so subtle.
Orwellian doublespeak.
And there's the announcement about the increase in chocolate rations.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah,
and. What's the line from 1984 about erasing the past? Essentially, that's what they're doing here. Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue and street building has been renamed, which we're seeing now.
It's funny how that seems to be a staple in modern dystopian stuff too. That we've got to get rid of history because we don't want people to think. What's the recent one? Silo, which was relatively recent. They did the same thing there. If you find old tech, it's straight away. It's like we're going to kick you out into the poisonous atmosphere, but you're not allowed to have it because there could be something on there that could make you think, which would...
Was that Fallout or something, or was it? It sounds like Fallout as well. It sounds like the concept they used in Fallout as well.
It's been done in tons of things. Like knowledge is a bad thing, so knowledge is power, so can't have power.
I think the United States is a great example. We're destroying historical statues and things,
landmarks and things.
And it's like in some ways you understand it, but then the long term is you no longer acknowledge that person's existence. You can't use them as a talking point to point out their weaknesses, their shortcomings, to show that they had flaws and learn from the mistakes of the past.
Yeah, exactly.
Removing history.
Yeah, and then as far as rewriting history, I'm kind of troubled when we have media will update their stories. So you just go to the web now and you read it. You read the story on Monday, it says one thing, and then later on it's updated to correct any problems in it. And sometimes they don't annotate those corrections.
Yes, which is why you've got to keep a copy of the original, so you can prove they've changed it. The
web archive's offline right now.
Yeah, that's why that's been destroyed. But I'm not sure I'm fully sympathetic with the Internet Archive. They haven't. Their own politics have been a little bit questionable at times. The scene we've just seen there, where he went into the proletariat area, the pros, which make up the majority of society. Because don't forget, Winston's part of the outer party. So there's the inner party, which is about 2% of the population. the outer party, which is about 20 to 30% of the population. Because there's a huge overarching, as you know, the government gets huge, doesn't it? Thousands and millions of apparatchiks, and then the rest of society are the proles. And so his temptation to have sex with, prostitutes, and just, he has a rebellious nature anyway, an inquiring mind, a rebellious nature anyway, which leads him down this path. But his job is to rewrite history, so he makes a hero out of somebody who was anything but, and that becomes fact. What was the movie that Dustin Hoffman was in that did that? And it was so close to the truth of what the American government does.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wag the Dog.
Wag the
Wag
Dog.
the Dog. Now,
Yeah.
Wag the Dog, massively influenced by in 1984, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, that I remember at the time that was highly controversial. And direct, basically,
Speaking
people,
truth.
yeah, people directly saying, okay, well, Clinton's trying to wag the dog, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Actually entered our political lexicon over here. So
Absolutely. So timestamp wise, we're at 22 minutes 36 seconds, and this is Winston again going around the prole area. Now, so many other movies have done this. Fahrenheit 451, well, the original book, and what was the one with Sean Bean and
Are we talking about Equilibrium?
yes, Equilibrium.
Yeah, I mentioned that before.
Yeah.
With Christian
Yeah.
Bale.
Yeah. So this is the scene where he visits a proletariat pub, and they tell him really. I don't think it's in the movie; it's in the book. He asks, what do you think of the government and what you're having to go through? And they basically say it takes all of our time and effort just to get by. We don't have enough energy left to talk about politics. And how much is that like today, where the majority are now politically disinterested?
oh yeah, well, I mean, it's exhausting everywhere you turn. I can tell you, here in the States, I cannot wait for November 5th to be passed and we can be done with political commercials for a while.
Yeah. Oh, here's Charrington. Now, an interesting factoid about Charrington, played by Cyril Cusack. Now, Cyril Cusack was also in Fahrenheit 451, played the controller in Fahrenheit 451. And both Richard Burton and Cyril Cusack were in The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, 1965.
Nice.
One movie, if you want to watch that. Cusack played the boss in that one. Interestingly, he quotes that although MI5 and Britain civilized and democratic on the outside, this doesn't prohibit them from using unorthodox practices to get information from their enemies. And you'll see how that makes sense later on in the movie. John Hurt went on to play the controller in the 2011 movie adaptation of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Yes.
Which was another Le Carrier novel. Another character you'll see right at the end of the movie, Roger Lloyd Pack, who was Trigger in Only Fools and Horses. That you won't, if you're not English, you might not have seen that comedy.
Yeah, I know the show. Yeah,
he's also in the 2011 Tinker Tailor.
That cast of the 2011 is just huge. So everybody's in that.
It's
movie.
amazing, and
I still love the original miniseries with Alec Guinness, though.
Yeah, that is brilliant, and I think perhaps it was the performance of Gary Oldman in that movie that probably led to Slow Horses.
Oh yeah, okay.
Couldn't really get into Slow Horses. It was a little bit too, ironically, propaganda. In a way.
Mm.
Yeah, that's one I haven't picked up
Yeah.
and tried yet.
So Charrington's talking about the room upstairs because Winston wants to rent the room. Everywhere he goes in the most of London is overseen by the party. And so he wants to be somewhere where he's not going to be seen. He wants to escape being observed all the time. And the picture opposite the bed is screwed to the wall. And it's the Church of St. Clemens, a picture of the Church of St. Clemens, which by this stage has been destroyed and replaced by one of the ministries. And a song that's been forgotten, Oranges and Lemons Say the Bells of St. Clemens, which is an old nursery rhyme. I'm going to nip to get another beer, gentlemen, so if you can cover the fort while I'm away for 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I was just going to say, well, here in America, we can definitely identify with a lot of these things. I think, like a lot of the British references.
Oh yeah.
Miss stuff like that. Oh, the Anti-Sex League. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. For 100,000, took a vow of celibacy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to think Orwell his opening line should have been, "This is not an instruction manual."
Yeah,
Please.
yeah. As I said before we started, like this was a cautionary tale, and now it's become a how-to guide.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
you totally missed the point. I think somewhere in the future there will be a follow-up to the famous Mitchell and Webb sketch of "Are we the baddies?"
Yeah.
When it's going to be about this stuff.
And he got a razor.
Got my razor, yay!
Hope he's had a tetanus shot.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to use that. Especially a helicopter approaching.
Kind of a Blue Thunder flashback moment.
Gray thunder in this movie.
Yes, everything's gray.
It's
Definitely has the look to it.
So bleak.
I mean, with the exception of subtle colors, it could just about be black and white.
There's always just standing there when she falls over, like, oh, okay. Should I help her up?
Of course, I think that's part of the paranoia that goes along
Yeah,
with the society
it's a
that they're
trap.
in.
Yeah, are you trying to trap me?
Exactly. Is it a trap? Okay. What am I going to do that could be reported?
Yeah, so we've just met Julia.
Yeah.
Julia, played by Susanna Hamilton.
And he had noticed her outside the shop when he came down from the room.
I noticed her a few times during the film. But yeah.
Yes, yeah, and that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he noticed her during the 2 minutes.
The 2 minutes of hate, yeah.
Oh, and then a note.
Victory Square.
Yeah. Talking about the cinematography you mentioned, Ralph, they did want to shoot the movie in black and white, but the backers of the movie, Virgin Films, again, opposed the idea. Deakins used a film processing technique called bleach bypass.
Uh-huh.
That made it like a washed out look, because back then you had to do all of this, as you said before in previous streams, all these chemical processes because they didn't have
Right.
CGI and a digital way to do it, so it had to be done with practical methods, and it's a rare example of that, but it was done on every release of the movie, and means the silver's kept in the print because they can't reclaim the silver, so it costs more to make the money, because what they do with the film stock, they'll wash the silver out and get the silver back and get money back off the silver. They couldn't do it with this one because the way it did it, but nevertheless, it gives it a really depth of richness in the way the colors come out, even though it's bleached. There's a richness to it, a real depth.
And I was going to say, I like black and white. Sometimes black and white is a bold choice, and it's a good way to go. In this one, I like the little splashes of color. For example, the red. When you see red, okay,
it stands out, doesn't it?
Yeah, it stands out. It's the Ing Sunk emblem.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, people call themselves brother and sister in this movie. The original novel, as you probably know, they called each other comrade, but that's just a small difference.
Children are still addicted to screens in this movie, though.
Yeah,
just like real life.
Yep.
It's like the fact that when they're like one, they get given a pad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
It's just the size of the screen anymore.
I love the fact that there's like an original Bobby, like you've got this alien scene, but in the midst of this really alien scene, you've got an old-fashioned Bobby with this helmet.
Wooden top, yeah.
And this was filmed in the Victory Square, as it's called, is filmed in the remnants of the I think it was, here we are, it's all in the same areas of London, and I think this was where is it here? I think I can find it. Checks notes.
Well, while you're looking at that, I'm just saying here, I have very, very Mao moments out of this. The Mao. I forget what he called his
Cultural Revolution.
Yes, thank you. That, like those giant gatherings where people
also
would have to get up
Cambodia as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
But Ralph, it just hasn't been done right.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Battersea Power Station there, famous landmark in London. Victory Mansion facade, because that was empty at the time. In the 80s, most of London was just a derelict shithole. A bit like today, really. Battersea Power Station in Wandsworth. The Victory Square was the shell of Alexandra Palace. Alexandra Palace was a historical building that had already been rebuilt once, and by the time they were shooting this, it was wrecked again. So that's where the previous scene was filmed.
Okay.
The proletarian zones were in Beckton Gasworks in the Dockland of Newham, and they were all in Cheshire Street at London's East End, where the prostitute was and where he's renting the room. George Orwell had actually visited those areas when he wrote Down and Out in Paris and London. So, sorry, I spoke over you there.
Oh, no, not at all. I was just going to point out, it reminds me of some of if you go back and look at the Death Wish movies, how they would show New York in the late 70s.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Certain areas just
look
like a war zone.
Yeah. I remember the opening credits to the TV series The Equalizer in like 1985 or 86, and I just was like, I'm never going to New York. I'm going to get raped and murdered.
Yep.
You might have in the early 80s.
Yeah. Well, pretty much now as well. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and there's
I'll
no
be back.
there's no Edward Woodward to protect me anymore.
No, you know why he has D's in his name, Tony?
His name would be Iwa Woodward.
Ooh, yeah, exactly. These scenes now on the train, I think it's the here we go.
That's green.
Picturesque
Yes.
journey into golden country, southwest country of Wiltshire. Now, Wiltshire is unbelievably beautiful.
And notice that now they're not doing the same color processing. Colors
Yeah,
very
This is it.
Have color.
vibrant.
This is it. And
Almost
It's funny.
faded.
It's funny. Sorry, just before when he's in helping the lady clean a sink, his clothing is quite blue, but now that he's out in the real world, it's very grey. Like it's almost like the colors are reversing.
yes, because he's surrounded by the real world.
Yeah, I was
Instead
gonna
of the
say
invented world that is imprisoning him.
yeah, I was going to compare it to the Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kansas into
Yeah.
Oz, that kind
Yes.
of thing.
Over the rainbow. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the term hyperreality?
Yes.
So the party constantly, by repetition and omnipresence, pushes its own version of reality on everybody. And then when you go out into the real world, this is the real world. And in a sense, it's like when they locked everybody up, etc. If you keep people in a certain condition, you can tell them whatever you want.
Yeah.
But this is Wiltshire. It's near the town of Devizes in southwest county Wiltshire. There's a natural hill circle called the Roundway, and this later features in Winston's fantasies and dreams later on. So this is the most enjoyable part of the movie for Winston, obviously, his golden halcyon days.
Oh yeah. Well, a little glimmer of hope, some relief in the drudgery of day to day.
And for viewers watching at home, we've just had full frontal nudity.
Yeah, they did that back. That is definitely an 80s thing.
Full frontal nudity. And would you do full frontal nudity? Only if it's justified.
Yeah, artistically, I
Monty
absolutely
Python,
would.
Watching the
I'm sure
Dennis
that's Monty Python.
the Dennis Pennis thing where he was badgering Demi Moore. He just said, if it was integral to the story, would you consider keeping your clothes on?
Yeah. Oh goodness.
Oh, that's perfection.
So what we've got for a timestamp?
Let me double check. 1 sec. I am at 39 minutes 24 seconds.
Cool.
I think I'm maybe a second or two behind you.
Yeah, it's around
Pretty close.
Yeah. So constant bulletins and the necessity to always listen to the bulletins. You can never turn your view screen off. You have to pay attention. You have to listen to them. If you don't, that could be constituted as a crime against the state.
Well, as they pointed out, earlier in there, they can check on you, so
Can
you
you see
never
his
know
clock,
when they're
by the way?
watching.
Can you see his clock, Ralph?
Oh yes.
Is
The
it on
24 hour?
13? I think it strikes 13 in the first opening scene.
Yeah, I can't see what it's on right now.
So now they're talking about eradicating the orgasm. Because an interesting point with this, all the characters, they only have one name apart from Winston. He's the only character who has a full name. You never get to hear what the first name of O'Brien is, or Mr. Charrington, or Parsons, or Syme. And Julia only has a first name. So it's as if the entire story, well, is carried by the memories of Winston Smith. It's from his perspective. And therefore, the story is about them eradicating him from the inside out. The state wants to destroy the human soul, basically, not just physically punish you, but destroy your very in essence. Because Betty says she's in sync for a change.
Hey, well, see, 3, 2, 1. Arrow sign.
I think it does work, Cosmetti, sometimes.
Woohoo! Another flawless beginning. You know, one of the things that was most difficult for me when I was young was trying to comprehend why people would want to do this. You know, why would people want to, you know, just try and crush others' souls, crush their hopes and things? It's very naive. You know?
And as you grow up, you realize that's exactly what
they're
human
doing.
nature is about.
Yeah, people are being on power trips.
Yeah, I mean that's it. You know, some people just, you know, to steal
People
from
are just scumbags.
to steal from a movie. Some men just want to watch the world burn. So
I mean, when you're in power, it becomes, and I think when you watch gangster movies, this is so prevalent that you become absolutely obsessed with a sense of paranoia that you're going to lose power. So
do anything to keep it.
Exactly. It all becomes about maintaining power. And politics today, more than ever, the mask is off. And it is literally simply about gaining and then maintaining power.
unfortunately, yes. Winston's participating in the 2-minute hate now.
Yeah.
2 minutes. I'm sorry, 2 minutes hate, I believe is how it's actually pronounced.
What do you think about the idea that we're already 43 minutes in and all we've seen is really the back of Richard Burton's head? And yet we already sort of get a feeling for who he is.
Yeah, I mean...
Big Ralph.
Big Ralph. Yes. Yes,
Glorious leader.
I'm trying to think of something benevolent to say to all my followers out there.
So I should really show the map of Orwell's future.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting because you're
There
talking about all the feeds coming in, and it's like just so much of it is just gobbledygook. It's just
and you've essentially
incessant.
got that's it. You've got the Commonwealth countries plus the Americas allied under INSOC, and then you've got Soviet Russia, and then you've got China. So China. I think I've worked out why Trump says it that way, because his mum was Scottish. And the Scottish people will say China like that.
China.
All right, okay, going to China. So that's where he gets his pronunciation from his mum.
Somebody that did Trump impersonations said you gotta always sound like you're trying to pull $100 bill out of your nose when you do a Trump impression.
So you've got
It's
okay, we're going to have the best election ever. It's going to be the best.
The biggest bill comes out of your nose.
Yeah, $100 bill. And she said,
see, if his mom had been a little further south, then he would call it China, right?
Says everything in black under INSOC.
Yes.
So poor old Australia and New Zealand.
Sorry,
why can't we be just Mad Max and leave it alone?
Yeah, I know. So this scene here,
Greenland didn't get away.
Yeah, it's just the middle of Africa is the only undecided, but that's the battlefront, so it's even worse.
Yeah, it's true.
45 minutes in, And they're talking about how the inner party have everything captured, they own everything, and they control the flow of what would be luxuries, coffee, tea, butter, cream, milk, things like that, and cigarettes, of course. And she's managed to smuggle some out, and then they enjoy these. And as he smokes a cigarette, he looks out to the prole woman who's has a sort of freedom because she's ignorant of everything going on, but because she's no threat to the state, she lives her own existence as she has done for generations, the working class proles. And it's interesting because if it's only when you stick your head over the parapet that you start getting the flack, don't you?
Yeah. As long as you don't seem like a threat, you can
Carry on your life.
Slip in under the radar.
Yeah. But and here Julia's found a dress, put makeup on, and just ordinary things we take for granted in this world are forbidden. Because, like you said, this is how it is today. Indeed.
Definitely. I don't think even somebody that may disagree with the take that we have as far along as we are can't deny that there are at least shadows of this.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. This is the setup in the background for the military gamble which is taking place in the background, which later becomes yes.
Well,
there's a 2 + 2 equals
2 + 2 = 4. Yeah. Sorry.
Now, just a little point of where that comes from. It comes from a Soviet. It comes from a Soviet statement. It's later used in the movie 2 + 2 = 5, but it comes from the Soviet 5-year plan from the 30s, where they said, 2 + 2 = 5, meaning that it's a 5-year plan, but we want to get it done in 4 years. So the Soviets were using doublethink back then in the 30s.
Mm.
And how many terms have entered common parlance?
Oh yeah.
Doublethink, newspeak, hate, 2 minutes of hate. Room 101 is the room in the BBC where George Orwell broadcasted propaganda messages, and he knew he was lying. He wrote them, broadcast them, and he knew he was lying. And he did it for the war effort and lied to people on air. And that's why that was his personal hell. Because he was lying, and he knew he was lying, and he hated himself for it, which is why it becomes Room 101 in the story becomes your personal hell, specifically your own personal nightmare.
Make sure the alcohol flows, though.
Yeah, so he was picking the faces out of the... Now O'Brien approaches him. Absolutely amazing performance by Richard Burton. Tenth edition of the Newspeak Dictionary. There were 1 or 2 unwords. In other words, words that no longer exist that you're not allowed to use anymore.
Oh.
and they keep on bringing out a new version. Now, how many times did they change the rules during 2020
Oh, yeah.
to keep everybody confused and vulnerable?
Well, keep you guessing, or
Keep you guessing all the time.
or worse yet, just not tell you the rules.
Yeah.
And then you find out retroactively, oh,
You've
sorry,
broken them. Yeah.
you've broken the rules. So therefore you're in timeout or whatever.
Exactly. Do you know, but this was, probably know already, this was Richard Burton's last movie. He was in very poor health most of the film. You can see, really. I mean, in a way, it adds to the realism of how everybody looks bleached out.
Yeah, everyone looks like in poor health in this movie.
Awful,
Oh,
don't they?
absolutely, yeah.
But he also had
Yeah.
great difficulty remembering his lines, and sometimes dozens of times scenes had to be redone. There's one scene that had to be redone 41 takes to get it right. But he died in August the 5th, 1984. I think the filming ended in June, and he died just over a month afterwards. So the film is posthumously dedicated to him. But the director and producers were actually opposed to casting Richard Burton as O'Brien because he hadn't made a movie in 5 years. He was a deadbeat at this point. His last two movies had been flops, basically. He didn't join the production until 6 weeks into the filming, and he filmed all his scenes over 3 weeks in May 1984. He did the whole lot, bang, and then he was away because he was in such bad health. But he was actually the fifth choice for the role of O'Brien. Paul Scofield, Rod Steiger, Sean Connery, Anthony Hopkins were also considered. I think the only other person I would think would have done a good job. Now, I think Sean might have done a good job, but I think Anthony Hopkins would have done a good job, definitely.
Yeah.
I think he definitely.
Hopkins would be very subdued more than Connery.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
but I think ultimately...
Nothing against Connery. I love Connery, but yeah.
But
I think...
sorry.
No, but I think, would you agree? I don't know, you don't have to, but Richard Burton is like the stone cold concrete wall that can deliver the character of O'Brien in like real starkness. I think Hopkins maybe would have been too warm. Connery would have been a bit too animated. Burton's like literally like a concrete wall if he wants to be. I just think that was
Connery. Yeah, Connery would be too Connery.
Yeah.
He can't help himself.
I'm just going to be Sean Connery.
Yeah, just going to do a Scottish accent, you know.
Just hell with us.
Can I take off my shirt? Show off.
I'm gonna punch on and defeat everybody.
God rest his soul.
Yes.
I love Connery. He's
Absolutely
great.
Connery. But yeah, I mean, did you know that the one thing, and bless him, I think they did this as a swan song for him, but Burton insisted his wardrobe be created by Savile Row tailors, despite that he's going to be wearing boiler suits throughout the movie. So they just did it anyway, because it was like a tip of the cap. He was a diva. I insist my stuff's done by Savile Row. So they did it anyway. I'm glad they did it in a way because it was his last movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're at, goodness me, this film goes quick.
Oh, yeah.
The pacing, you can tell a good movie. It's like, woo, like Rings of Power. You'll be grinding your teeth for 10 minutes.
I have not braved that one.
Oh, it's only 10 bloody minutes. Falling asleep after 5 minutes. But this, it's like already 55 minutes in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've got to the stage in their romance now where I think they're starting to get a bit scared of being discovered. The energy and the hyperactivity and the eroticism is starting to wear off a little bit, and they're getting to the point where they're getting really scared and paranoid.
Well, and yeah, I mean that's the thing is, up until that point, you know, it's bleak, but you have nothing to lose. Now you have something
Yeah,
to lose,
they
and
got
that makes it
something to
even
lose.
worse.
exactly. These are the random steamer bombs. They're reminiscent of the the buzz bombs that hit London during the Blitz.
Oh yes, yes.
The Nazi V bombs and that. The doodle bugs, they were called. Because they would run out of petrol or gasoline or air fuel. Sorry, brain failure. But they would run out of fuel, and then the last part of the journey, they would just glide in and hit their target.
Yes.
So this is the Democratic Party headquarters. Damage control.
Yeah, damage control.
Damage control.
You know,
what do we do?
I've tried to listen into some of the reports, and you know, it always seems like glorious victory being reported, that kind of thing. And I was curious if I was accurate with that or not. So, you know, I figure this would be a massive point where it's like, okay, how do we make this into good news somehow?
Do you see that line there? The past is erased, and then the erasure is forgotten.
Yeah.
And they're working overtime to try and double shifts to try and, you know, deal with this. But Eurasia is now their friend.
There you go. Room 101.
Yeah. And so I think when there's a line in 1984 about the only freedom he had was the tiny box within his own head, because they couldn't tell what he was thinking, even though the crime of thought crime exists.
Yeah, and thought crimes. It's
a thing today, now, becoming a crime now.
Yeah, I saw a news story not long ago, and you know, I don't want to go into the details, but I will say that I was absolutely shocked. But
it's do you know what it is? The worst thing of all is I'm now not shocked.
I shouldn't be.
The saddest thing of all.
Yeah. I guess I haven't moved on to the next stage in
acceptance.
Grief stage. Yeah. I haven't moved to acceptance. I'm still in anger is the first step.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy, isn't it? But here we are. It's we're almost at the hour mark, 59 minutes, 5 seconds. A boy version of Winston Smith, and he eaten the ration or something, and he's running away.
Yeah, stole
the ration. And this is the scene where he sees the rats, I believe. This is where he gets his fear of rats. He enters a room.
Yeah, they did have a scene earlier of, I believe it was his mother with rats over her.
Yeah, rats all over him. Yeah.
Now
there's rats here.
Do you know that Michael Radford, the director, had the members of his crew actually go down into the sewers in London and get real sewer rats for the movie? These aren't pets. These are real sewer rats.
Dirty rats.
Dirty.
Full of plague.
Yeah.
Now they're talking about the inevitability of being discovered and what they will do. Will they betray each other? Will they confess his confessing betrayal? And this conversation about love, because one of the main themes of 1984 is human love between a man and a woman. Can that be destroyed? And can the instinctive need to survive overrule and make you betray even the one that you love? If you're in that situation where it's life or death, would you betray the one you love in order to avoid death? I think for women, it's at the risk of sounding cliched, women and men think differently, but for women, it's an easier choice in as much as where am I going with this? I'm painting myself in the corner. I think at the end of the story, without giving too much away, they both lose something, but it's Julia who comes back to him at the end of the movie after everything's been done. But then I can't say too much, but the relationship between men and women, I think something does still survive at the end of the story. I'll stop talking now anyway.
I get you. Yeah, we may have to hold off for a little bit on it for you to
I'm sort of jumping
on it.
ahead a bit. Yeah, I'm jumping.
And we've finally seen somewhere that's clean.
Yes.
Which is the offices of the the main building.
Very 1980s grey office decor.
But yeah, there's no dust, there's no dirt, there's like
exactly
corridors are clean, everything's clean.
Not covered in soot. The emblem is actually clean.
Yeah. His clothing is clean. Yeah.
Oh, and that's interesting because they're still in the coveralls, but the different coveralls. And funny you mentioned the tailor earlier, but it fits well because he's higher up in the party. And I'm wearing coveralls, but they're designed.
Brian's in the inner party, and he has a glass of wine, and he has this, that, and the other. And you can imagine this is air conditioned, and he has a butler, a waiter.
All animals are equal.
He is allowed to turn his view screen off.
Oh.
Now, Winston has never even tasted wine before. Doesn't even know what it is. And so Brian's trying to intimate to him about the resistance. A lot of videos on YouTube, not that this is the point of the story, talk about, in theory, in the lore of the story, did Oceania become overthrown from within? Would it have been possible? Would those in the resistance, would there eventually be someone who would come along, or people who would come along that would overthrow it? But I don't think that was the point of what Orwell was saying.
The fact that he's bringing up that the resistance is real and thought criminals denying the existence of the resistance, immediately makes you think, okay, well, Ingsoc is staging their own attacks as an excuse to crack down.
Exactly. And then you went to the rabbit hole of disinformation and white noise, which is actually in itself a form of warfare, psychological warfare. My dad used to be, I won't say too much, but he was in the forces, and he said that disinformation is one of the principal ways to confuse your enemy. And you get people second and third and fourth and fifth guessing about what the truth is and what the real plan and agenda is, to the point that it just becomes impossible to know what the plan is.
trying to filter through all of the white noise to figure out what the actual plan is.
Yeah.
That's makes sense as far as tactics go. Absolutely.
So here's a propaganda message about the murder of citizens by the attacks. And I think this is part of every... Remember the Gulf War One, when we had live broadcasts of from Baghdad. You could see the missiles come. It became a form of entertainment, didn't it?
It
You
did
could see
become
the
very
missiles
addictive.
coming in. Yeah, and it was so well done, the propaganda, to get you to invest upon every part of it. That and Hussein was the Goldstein. You know, he was definitely the Goldstein. So he has been given a dictionary of Newspeak by O'Brien, but it turns out that it's actually Goldstein's book, hidden within the book.
Ah.
And so this is where he begins to read Goldstein's book about which is the hidden truth about how everything is constructed, this society.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, and you brought up the Gulf War.
Yeah.
And Saddam Hussein, and I
Yeah.
remember the first Gulf War. You're right. It almost turned into a form of entertainment.
Yeah.
Every evening after work.
Yeah.
I would come
let's tune
sit
in and see what Fox News has on, or BBC.
See what's going to happen with the airstrikes overnight.
Yeah.
I think at the time, during the first Gulf War, I think I was exclusively watching CNN.
Yeah.
I don't even recall if Fox News existed by that point.
Yeah. No, that was it. It was CNN. There's the glorious soldiers of the revolution. Some people think these are Soviet helmets. They're actually Italian World War II helmets painted black.
Oh, okay. At first glance, I thought they were Russian helmets as well. Looked similar design. But in 1980, I can tell you from my perspective, in the 80s, from the United States, we envisioned, this was talking about the Soviet Union. I'm sure most of us in the United States missed that point, that it can happen here. And I don't recall if I mentioned before the show, that's been the American mindset. It'll never happen here. We're America.
And the best way to do it, is the most successful way to do it is that people don't even know what's happening.
Yes.
I know he's reading the book at the moment in bed to Julia while he's reading it to her. But I forgot to mention earlier, when he writes in his diary for the first time, that scene was filmed where he writes the date entry April 4th, 1984. That scene was actually filmed on April the 4th, 1984. So talk about authenticity. That's as authentic as you can get, really.
Yeah, very bizarre. I'm just looking at the physical presence of John Hurt in this movie. I mean, he just looks like somebody that has just, suffered, been drugged through the mud. I think he was cast perfectly for this role.
Yeah, and he was always the first consideration. The publicity for the movie listed him before Burton. He was first in the billing, and he's noted as the one and only choice they wanted from the start to play Winston Smith.
I think perfect casting there. I mean, you know, and not to take away from his acting in here, just you know, visually, he represents the character well.
It's amazing his chest is healed after Alien.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can hardly see the scar.
Yeah,
this is a prequel
method,
to Alien.
That's it, the prequel.
Oh, naked scenes, but naked.
Naked.
She there's that song again.
Lady, don't look up. Trust me on this.
Yeah, you get a shock. If anything, I don't know what you guys think, but I think Orwell was saying maybe there's something that will always survive. You know, the proletariat, they'll always survive somehow because they've always had to survive.
Yeah, I mean that's it. It's empires come and go. I mean,
yeah. And I was watching a stream by a guy called Academic Agent the other day who talked about the Persians because he's half Persian, half Welsh, half Persian, and he said, you know, the Persian Empire was amazing at one stage. It was greater than the Greek Empire, and it survived. And it's, of course, now Iran is a horrible place, but the people there will survive. Here we go. Look, behind the picture all the time.
yep.
There we are, the inevitable thing. And it's interestingly while they're naked as well. Do not touch one another. Remain 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
What's this helicopter, Ralph? Nice. I think, is it a Bell 47?
It is a Bell, definitely, but yeah, I'm not too sure.
It reminds me of the ones that they had in MASH.
Yeah, no, it's definitely that sort of area. Yeah.
And so within seconds, and of course, they smashed the little glass globe paperweight.
Yeah.
Punches straight in the solar plexus on the guts.
You know, and them reciting exactly what they're going to say before they say it. They know everything that's coming.
Yeah, that's the scariest thing of all. It's a bit like The Matrix has obviously been influenced by this as well, I would say. You know, what's he called? The architect.
Yes, the architect.
Yeah. Here's Charrington, who all the time was an agent of the state. An agent of the thought police. Thought police are based on the Soviet NKVD, Narodny Commissariat Внутренних Дел. Translation, People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs. A secret Soviet police force which operated from 1934 to 1946. Predates the KGB. They would arrest people for anti-Soviet remarks. And in the movie and also the book, the thought crime motif is drawn from the the Kempaitai, the Japanese wartime secret police who arrested people for unpatriotic thoughts. So that's based partly on the Soviets and partly on the Japanese.
Interesting. Of course, the East Germans had their Stasi as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just thinking back to everything that existed in 1984, in just 40 years, I wonder how many people have forgotten all of these organizations that existed. That within
do they know anything about this?
Yeah,
exactly. Well, it's interesting. There's more time elapsed now between now and the filming of this movie than between this movie and the release of the book. The book was released in 1949. This film came out in 1984. So 35 years. And it's actually longer than that since now and the film, 40 years.
Yeah. Wow.
This is Parsons. A beautiful performance by Gregor Fisher, and he's crying because he's petrified, but he thought his sycophanticism would protect him. And any small thing, they'll pick up on any small thing. There's no security.
Did he say that his daughter found him out and turned him in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, he's willing already to say whatever's necessary. But they don't care. It's all about destroying people completely. There's no way out. Because what he said he was proud of her for turning him in. Yeah, that's the worst of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it doesn't matter how loyal you are to the state. Makes no difference. It's absolute and utter total control. Has anybody here been incarcerated before? You don't have to answer if you haven't, or you don't have to disclose. I have.
I have not.
I have been incarcerated.
One
night. For one night for being a naughty boy many years ago.
Yeah. Naughty boy.
And it's an awful experience. It is an awful experience.
I don't think I'd do well in jail.
Well, it wasn't a jail. It was a police station, but it's
but it's still a jail.
That door closes. You're not getting out unless someone lets you out.
Yeah, when I'm going in the back of the squad car, I'll be screaming, "I'm too pretty for prison."
I'll grass on everybody.
Hit him in the arm straight away. And what did he say when he said that? They've got his diary anyway, which is a complete record of everything. This scene here where they clip all his hair off, this is what they used to do. Prisoner of war camps. They did it to Quislings at the end of the war because it's ritual humiliation. His mind's starting to try and escape.
It wouldn't affect me now.
They'd make you grow hair.
Oh, okay. And then cut it off.
They'd make you wear a wig and then cut it off.
Yeah.
Look how good you are with hair. Now I'm taking it off.
Look at the wig. Get used to the wig. Now I'm going to take away the wig.
That glorious mullet from 1987. It's gone now.
Yes.
You look like Kurt Russell from bloody
Mullet Crime.
Big Trouble in Little China. Time mullet.
Time mullet. Version of 1984 new version. Call it Mullet Crime.
Mullet Crime. There you go. We still got to finish Time Mullet first.
Time Mullet.
Yes.
What if Kurt Russell would
Crimes against
do a cameo for us. I have to ring him up. Hey, Kurt, buddy.
So this is one of the worst scenes in the movie. They're starting to torture him, and O'Brien is being perfectly reasonable in his speech to him, as if this is all perfectly civilized, and there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. It's all justified. And talking about his defective memory, he never sought to cure himself. Which power is Oceania at war with?
Who is number one?
Yeah.
There are 4 lights.
And Oceania has always been at war with Eastasia? So you're not even allowed to have memories if it contradicts what the party has decided to change. Hurt's performance here, how pathetic he becomes, is perfect, which is totally convincing in why they chose him to play the part of Elephant Man.
So the thing, just something you said, just about not being allowed to remember stuff, before before government or whatever. But it is like that with newer generations. If they didn't grow up through, as I said before, that we started growing up through the Cold War, we had attitudes towards communism and things like that. Nowadays, communism seems to be a great idea for some of the younger generations. You don't know because you weren't there. And it's kind of scary that that history and knowledge and that gets sort of pushed to the wayside for the wherever they want to go. It's like
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Just wait long enough for people to forget, and then we'll try it and we'll do it right this time.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the tortures that Winston endures in the Ministry of Love are procedures used by the Soviet NKVD when they interrogated, beatings using rubber truncheons, forbidden to put your hands in your pockets, in brightly lit rooms for days, torture through the use of provoked rodents, and the victim mirror.
God! I forgot that was from this.
Yes.
Yeah. These are all. I will not say, but there is a torture the Chinese communists did, which involved something. I don't want to talk about it on the stream, but
no. I just this scene of how many fingers.
Yeah.
I forgot that's what this is from that classic Star Trek episode of there are 4 lights. No, there are 5 lights.
Yeah, and it's just influenced so many different things, hasn't it? This story.
And then holding him like a baby.
Holding like a baby. So this is the process of breaking his mind down and then rebuilding it in the form of their choosing.
And you can't be a smartass and go, well, there's 4 fingers and a thumb.
But I think, with the evidence from hostages and people have been kidnapped, what is it called again? Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, because the brain has to have some sort of outlet, so it becomes to sympathize with the hostage taker as a means of trying to maintain some sort of
survival.
Survival, exactly. But I think torturers, especially the Soviets, have become to understand the human mind so well, they know how to break it. So in this scene, what's your feelings? Do you feel sympathetic towards Vincent Smith, or do you feel disgusted that he's trying to apologize, or what are you thinking?
Yeah,
It's hard not to feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
But because look, we got the the foresight of living in not that world, so it's like this is horrible.
That's a good point.
So you sort of feel sorry for him, but
yeah. Well,
I mean, it is one of those things where I wonder how long it would take me to go. Yeah, there's 5 fingers. The 6th finger. How many do you want me to say? How much pain can you take?
And that's kind of my position, because I don't know how long.
Yeah, I've never been.
It's sleep deprivation is one of the worst.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that.
And after 3 days without sleep, you're ready to kill your own mother, I think, is what some people have said in the past, from what I've heard. This is the scary thought that if you're tortured to that point, you'll do anything.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. I sympathize with him, because I understand he wants to hold on to
humanity.
Yeah, he wants to hold on to his humanity, his individuality, and in the back of his mind, he has to be thinking, like the I forget the other character's name, that his daughter turned him in, and he was compliant all along. If they think you're lying, they may not stop anyway.
Yeah, there's absolutely no contingency at all. But this level of torture is what they do to obviously captured spies, but also the military. They don't go anywhere near this far, but the principle of military training is similar in that you break the person's will down and rebuild it the way you want it to be. So basic training is about breaking down your resistance and getting you to completely comply.
You're right about Richard Burton. Just the fact that he is completely calm, emotionless through this whole thing. Just
also the added just adding to just how horrible it is, like how he puts his hand on his shoulder, like it's going to be okay, sort of gesture before. And it's like, this won't hurt at all. It's like, what the?
It's sick, isn't it? It's absolutely sick.
We've just got to get through this.
It's for your own. It's for your own good.
Exactly.
We're just trying to help you.
And again, I think that's another example of, you could say good cop, bad cop, but it's another example of doublethink.
Bad cop, worse cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see how Winston's mind goes back to that place constantly. Yeah. And then what's happening is his brain is being rewired. They are training his brain to think what they want him to think. They want to have total control, and for his mind to think what they want him to think. And the saddest thing of all is his brain is rewired, so he loves Big Brother completely in the end.
Yeah.
There we are. Power is tearing human minds apart and putting them together again in new shapes of your own choosing. Because when he says, I'll just be watching Pizza Map through these scenes. Yeah,
I can
fine.
understand.
Well, it's gone now because I'll get another thing
Oh.
for you. Yeah, these are the worst scenes of all. And there you go. There is no love. Love does not exist unless it's love of Big Brother. So, here we are. That's the eponymous quote, isn't it? A vision of the future, boot stamping on a human face forever.
It's a horrible way to live.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Can you see how his voice is reduced to a squeak now? And Winston makes the point that life will defeat you, that the party thinks they control life. We create human nature. In Brave New World, this point is taken to its extreme, isn't it? Because they actually breed humans to be completely compliant.
Yep.
So it's taken further, which is, the people who are bred are already bred to be docile. Because when he says, I do like the speech, even though it creeps me out, it sticks with me.
It's horrible. Yeah.
It really
It's
is.
well done.
Yeah.
And Winston's still convinced that they'll fail. Some spirit they'll never overcome. The spirit of man. I don't think Orwell's saying that they will inevitably get to this stage. But he's saying that the human nature in itself will lead to these kinds of regimes.
It's funny, actually, just mentioning the Matrix earlier, how they the bit where Agent Smith says that one of the earlier versions of the Matrix, it was like utopia, and no one accepted it, so they lost entire batches of life.
Yeah,
so they had to make it like a little bit more brutal and shitty.
Yeah,
because that's what humanity expects. Which is kind of a horrible way of looking at how we look at ourselves, but it's probably not incorrect.
And there you go again, Tony. You've got this scene where he shows himself in the mirror. This is horrible, this scene, where he's rotting away and he just literally pulls a tooth out of his mouth. It's horrible. Oh my God. He just pulls it out like that straight away. Oh, it's terrifying. And he's trying to make him think that humanity is just a horror. This is the most disturbing scene in the movie. Actually, no, there's another, isn't there? Begging to be shot.
yeah.
But don't give up hope, O'Brien says. Don't give up hope of being shot. Oh my goodness. And the shocking truth of this is this procedure has happened in reality countless times. It's not just on the screen. This has actually happened.
Yeah.
And this is the dream sequence where they're smiling at each other and you are the party. You are one of us, one of the chosen. I love you. So you see how they're taking that part of his mind, which is his love for Julia, and supplanting that with love of the party. It's, what's the word for that? It's like usurping, I suppose.
I can't think of a better word for it. So
And now O'Brien asks what his true feelings towards Big Brother are, and he says, I hate him. You must love him. It's not enough to obey him. You must love him. And here we go. The last, well, perhaps one of the last tortures, room 101. Here it is. In the chair. Hey there. Chair. Colonel Morgs turned up. Huxley and Orwell's greatest contribution to culture and the human condition for me personally is that the role-playing game Paranoia would likely not have existed without 1984 and Brave New World being written.
That's very true. Very true.
Very true. And Paranoia is the most difficult RPG you'll ever play.
I had a couple of great games of Paranoia. So there you go. So the punishment, the torture is individual, but whatever it is, it's going to be absolute hell. And they are sewer rats. I mean, the genius of Orwell to come up with a torture, which is they know your personal nightmare. Yeah, so now he's telling him that they know that when a human being is helpless and they've been known to strip something to the bone. So he's terrified now. And this was a torture method that the Chinese Communist Party used back in the day. Yeah, Cosmetti's going.
Oh yeah,
Cosmetti's emoting here. See no evil, hear no evil. Yeah, this is terrifying. And it's terrifying because this actually happened. This is a method that was used. Now he's begging to them, what do you want me to do? that I've got to say, that rat is actually scared. You can tell that rat's scared. It's going, I don't want to be in movies.
Oh yeah.
I'm not even being paid for this. There we go. So Julia turns up in his mind and she says, I love you, but do it to Julia, and he's broken. Do it to Julia, not me. So they pushed him so far they managed to destroy his love for Julia. It's gone. And here is the final scene is it the Apple Tree Cafe? I'm not sure. And he's playing chess and drinking watered down victory gin when Julia walks in. Chestnut Tree Cafe, apologies. And there he is, Trigger. Robert Lloyd Pack as the waiter. There's a little, I don't know what's this little thing they shake into the glass of gin? What is it?
I don't know. I couldn't see.
You are warned to stand by for an important announcement at 15:30. So you're being told to wait for an announcement. Could that have happened in 2020? And see how they've captured him so much that he's actually concerned about these announcements. He cares. He's invested. Buy my crowdfund.
Yeah.
Morg says, the worst evil in the view of Tolkien was domination of others and stealing of free will. Yes. The rings are a fantasy version of methodologies used in 1984 to reduce people into nothing more than wraiths. Precisely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Tolkien saw it. Orwell saw it. And interestingly, both men had been through warfare. So they admit to each other, they basically betrayed each other. Sex, crime, all your treachery. But they're having a perfectly reasonable conversation, even so, which shows that it's not complete. The defeat is not complete. They're still meeting each other. And thought crime, sex crime were part of the charges. So he says perfunctorily, yes, we must meet again, but maybe there is something there. However, I think, is not Winston still sentenced to death anyway? And here are the lies that he has to read out on the big video screens. To his deliberately contracted syphilis to spread it to his wife that he doesn't have. But you see, the litany of sins he's committed are completely and utterly over-exaggerated.
Yeah, just ridiculous. And
I'm glad I was caught. I was mentally deranged. Now I am cured. My love of our leader. Shot with my mind is still clean. Oh, there's your 2 + 2 there, Ralph. And finally, the victory over Eurasia, because Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia. 1 million prisoners. The war to an end, of course it won't end. I think this is the last part of his resistance is over. At this point, I think the last part of himself gives in. But in the movie, it does something slightly different to the book. When he looks back from the screen, because in the book it talks about why had he not seen how beautiful and wonderful Big Brother was, and now he realizes how wrong he was and how he loves Big Brother, and his gin-soaked tears come down his face. But in the movie version, as he looks to the screen, it's as if he's also looking to the door of the cafe towards Julia. When he says, "I love you," it's left to be ambiguous, meaning that he might be still talking about Julia. That's my own interpretation. And there's the ending credits. That was fast.
Yeah, that zips along.
And you know what? One thing I was really scared about was the torture scenes are very hard to watch. And I've just watched them and thought, actually, no, compared to where we are in today's world, it's scarily not that hard, proving that we've all been desensitized.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and in the torture scenes, I don't want to be morbid, but they were done well. They do the psychological side, and it's most of it is in our minds, which is far worse than anything that they can show. I mean, people have talked about the Terrifier movies and Hostel, torture porn, stuff like that.
Terrifier movies are in the news a lot at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I subscribe, I guess is the correct word, to Hitchcock's method of, give them the beginning of it, give them a hint of it, and then let them fill in the rest, and it will be much worse than anything you could ever hope to put on screen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and Stephen King is the worst offender of this, because you get to the end of his books, you've gone through this gigantic book, you've built up this gigantic enemy, it's a reveal, and it's a world full of ants. Okay, I'm done. I can't tell you how many of his books I've read. I've been like, okay, I'm out. So
no, I know some people really love him and think he's a genius. I mean, I'm not really a fan of horror narrative myself, but one thing I will say about the Terrifier movies is that there's been a lot of talk about them. In a sense, it's like a revisiting of the 1970s slashers movies. But the true horror is, like you said, what you don't know and what might happen and might not happen. And
to go back to, and I'm sorry to cut you off, to go back to it, it's just like Orwell there. Every torture is specific to the individual. So when you leave it to that individual, they're going to fill in their mind with what bothers them the most. So that's why I think the scenes were perfectly done.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, other than the tooth being pulled out.
Yeah, it was pretty messed up.
Yeah, and just the overall look of John Hurt, there really wasn't much
perfect
to it. He's laid on the board.
There couldn't have been any other actor who could have played Winston Smith, because the character of Winston Smith, I think, is somebody who's independently thinking, but he's totally vulnerable and he's flawed.
Yes.
And there's never going to be, and there's that ending. That was that ending quote there at the end there about. I think it was a dedication as well to Richard Burton. But sorry, go ahead.
Oh no!
Sorry, I thought you were going to say something, Tony.
Oh no! I was just agreeing. Yes.
So I mean the like I say, the character, and of course there's some I would say there's something of George Orwell in the character of Winston Smith as well. Some might argue with me over that, but I think he's a perfect actor for it, and I don't think anybody else could have done a good a job as that, because that is so versatile. I mean, if you're not familiar with John Hurt, his other work, watch his performance of Caligula in I, Claudius.
Oh God, yeah,
unbelievable. And of course we all know him from Alien, but his performance in The Elephant Man as well, which was incredible. He's able to really pull at your heartstrings, but in this movie his performance was just a man who wanted to escape when he was already found himself in a regime that specifically the regime in this story is a regime that wants to have complete control over even your own thoughts, and
there is no escape.
There is no individualism allowed at all. At all, the individual does not exist. So it's actually quite when you think about it, it's actually quite a simple idea. It's a very simple idea, and yet, scarily, it's a lot easier to watch now, because unfortunately there's too much of this similarity going on now. What do you think?
Well, I find it the opposite. I find it even more difficult to watch now because of the similarities. When like as we've gone through the different things, it bothers me. It's like why
Why
it makes you why are we allowing it to happen? It makes you question yourself. It's like, is this really? Am I just viewing this incorrectly? Because it seems like other people aren't speaking up. It's a very disturbing concept in film, and a fantastic work though.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Tony?
I sort of see both sides of that. Like it can be easier to stomach, but on the flip side to it, it's like when you, and this is coming from someone who likes studying history.
Yeah.
You look at the military dictatorship communist regimes over the years that are responsible for 100 million deaths.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, where does it end? Like, at what point, there is no greater good with this, because it's just evil at the end of the day.
No, I know. Well, I mean, the director Michael Radford said about the movie, there are attitudes of doublethink all around us. George Orwell pointed it out in a very extreme form. He was writing when the world had just experienced an upheaval from the right, he said. But nevertheless, I would tend to think that, the mid-century German regime was socialist. They were called National Socialists. Just any form of authoritarianism. But since then, we have had no people from the left, communism, he said at the time. Now we can see both sides of it. What I tried to do is tread a delicate path between satire and parody, make it clear that Orwell was offering a vision of totalitarianism derived from the world he knew at the time. The film is not a pseudo-documentary about what might happen if the Soviets took over Britain. At the bottom, 1984 is about a human being, and that's all. Orwell was a philosopher of human decency. There are no references to anything that happened after 1948. This is, in a sense, a period movie. I've tried to make the story utterly real, although the setting is utterly unreal. Everybody behaves as normal as possible, which produces a strange, surreal effect. That's how you feel when you read the book. I think it's the first ever naturalistic science fiction movie. I don't know whether I would classify as science fiction movie, but I agree that weird dissonance between normality, like normal performances in an unreal world, is something that helps to convince you of the truth of it, isn't it? I mean, one thing talking about Tolkien again from what Mork said earlier was, Tolkien's works have a certain amount of familiar things in them to help you get a frame of reference, So in Middle Earth, there are certain things there like tobacco exists and wine exists and waistcoats and things like that, and to give you a frame of reference. And I think with this story, everybody's shuffling around in a sort of 9-to-5 way to give you that frame of reference, doing their day-to-day jobs, when in fact the overarching reality that living in is an utter hellscape. But yeah, I mean, overall, I should read this comment from Cosmetti as well. She says, I'll have to increase my chocolate rations after this.
Yeah.
So, yes, indeed.
Congratulations. Take them up to 30.
Yeah, because they are increasing from 30. They're not decreasing.
Yes, exactly.
And, Ralph, the gasoline prices have never been this good in the States. You do realize that. You do realize gasoline prices have come down. You do realize that, unemployment's come down.
Yeah, well, we brought up the movie Rotor. I'm saying it like Riff Tracks does. Rotor.
Rotor.
Yeah, they'll have to go back and CGI those gas prices to put a 2 in front of them.
Do you know what? With AI, they can do that now, can't they? AI will get to the point where you'll be able to retroactively do all that, won't you?
Yeah, because that's the most shocking thing in that movie is gas was 79 cents a gallon. I remember that.
It's shocking, isn't it? But very quickly before we go, a couple of things to mention there, that this movie didn't necessarily happen. Well, I'm starting to sound like Newspeak now or Doublethink. This never happened. You don't remember this. It almost didn't happen because the film rights were bought from George Orwell's widow just before she died, and it almost didn't happen. Marvin J. Rosenblum, there's a fantastic American name, isn't it? Marvin J. Rosenblum. Chicago lawyer, secured the movie rights to the novel from George Orwell's widow, Sonia Orwell, shortly before she died in 1980. It took a lot of persuading on Mr. Rosenblum's part before Mrs. Orwell eventually agreed to allow him to produce the movie, only under the stipulation that no futuristic science fiction or special effects could be used to tell the story. Mrs. Orwell was said to have hated the 1956 version that had Edmund O'Brien and Jan Sterling. She was also appalled when David Bowie proposed to turn it into a rock musical in the mid-70s.
Oh, goodness, yeah. That would have flopped.
That would have been terrible. Horrible. But interesting that movie had no special effects, and it was amazing, showing that you don't need it. You didn't. The whole idea was it was supposed to be a war of attrition, that society was slowly rotting away. It wasn't. That's what dystopia is. But interestingly, there are other movies that do feature special effects, which is things like Blade Runner. And I was trying to think of the third, because there's this movie in 1984, then Brazil came out in 1985. But I think the third movie, which would complete like a trilogy of dystopian movies inspired, by the original book, would be something like Blade Runner, which was 1982, which was also like a dystopian vision of the future where, humanity, people had sort of lost their souls because you can replicate humans, and the replicated humans have no souls, supposedly. But yeah, I mean, the ultimately it was a close thing to get the rights to make the movie, and of course, when the production team managed to get the script, get the Marvin Rosenblum to agree for this movie version to be produced, they literally had months to make the movie and then released it in the October. I think they started in March April time, and within 4 months, 3-4 months, they'd done the movie. It was in the can, and literally bang, straight away after, within 6 months later of starting the movie, it was out, it was released. And that's record turnaround time, isn't it? Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it could not do that now. And the biggest selling point of the movie was that it was filmed and released, and filmed on location at the time that the book's based, and released in the same year that the book was based. So it got the Best British Film of the Year award from the Evening Standard British Film Awards 1984. The legacy of the movie is that it's influenced countless other films, really. The vocabulary of newspeak is in common parlance now, and it's something that everybody's familiar with, unfortunately, for the wrong reasons. we now use this in everyday speech. So overall, I think as a movie adaptation of the book, it does justice to the book. It's never going to be the same as reading the book itself, but as a form of cinema version of the book, I can't think of a better way that it could have been done. And what are your final thoughts, gentlemen?
Just very, very similar to those. I think it's an excellent adaptation. It holds up well. They did the sparseness of it and the lack of special effects. Now if it were made, they would probably make it an action thriller.
Oh, it'll be all green screen. Yeah.
Whereas someone that has a lot rooted in the 80s, I recognize a lot of the things that they pulled from for inspiration.
Like the Pepsi advert came out of this as well. Don't forget.
Yes, exactly. Apple. Yes.
Pepsi. What am I talking about?
It was Apple.
Apple, wasn't it?
Apple.
Yeah.
And it's it's still impressive 40 years later, and it didn't need Flash. Didn't need.
Let's hope they not do another version of this.
My apologies to David Bowie. I think he would have made a horrible mistake.
Yeah, I love Bowie, but yeah, no, not the right material for rock musical.
Flash Gordon, that's okay.
Yeah,
definitely. What do you think, Tony? Overall, that seeing it again after all these years?
No, it'll probably be another 32 years before I watch it again. But yeah, no, I think it's an important adaptation. When you think of adaptations over the years, and you just think that as close to perfect as you can get, it's definitely definitely in the top 10 of those. It's bleak and it's nasty and all that, but it tells a good story, and it's done well. Perfect cast. It was just everything was just they lined their ducks up really nicely with that film. Yeah. And I mean, it's inspired the book, and even this movie probably has inspired a lot of other cinema. And I don't care what young generations say. Going, Hunger Games is the greatest concept of dystopian. No, it really is.
Yeah.
But I do think people should read it, and people should see this at least once in their life, and for the right reasons, not go, I reckon I could turn society into this easily. What a great idea.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy rewatching that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the INSOC flag wouldn't look out of place in an Antifa rally, would it really?
No. Neither would the military either.
Yeah, exactly.
They look like Antifa people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely a very well done movie, concise, straightforward, no fat on it whatsoever.
It was something that went for it was like an hour and 50 minutes. That's not short.
By.
But yeah, you don't notice it.
No, it just shows you how well constructed the novel is. Because there are certain exactly. I mean, there's several movies based on novels, which the novel is so because Orwell was a journalist, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So his writing had to be concise, So, like I say, not an analysis of the novel, but of the movie adaptation, and what a great adaptation it was, and still is, and still very much the best one I can think of. Very quickly, the other adaptations of the movie. The first one was in 1956, and that was starring. Actually, had Donald Pleasance in it as Parsons, Jan Sterling as Julia, Michael Redgrave as O'Brien. I think that was. I'm not sure if that was yes, it was a film and adaptation. Then we had this one in 1984, and there had previously been TV versions of this. I think there was CBS Studios in America did a version in 1953, and they also did a version in 1954. But other movies. Many other movies have drawn their inspiration from this story, but this movie adaptation of the book is the most authentic and sincere version of adaptation from the original novel in as complete form as it can be in cinema, and a pleasure to watch. Even though it's absolutely terrifying, it's still a wonderful work of cinema that really does convey the essence of what Orwell's trying to say ultimately, which was a warning from the past as to what could happen in the future. And I hope it's been entertaining for everyone. Thank you everybody who joined throughout. Thank you for Cosmetti and of course Colonel Morg, who joined in the chat live tonight, and everybody who'll watch recorded later on. And thank you again to my co-hosts, both Big Ralph and of course Tony, not again, Winston. And it remains for me to say that remember to love Big Brother, and it is
love Big Ralph.
Love Big Ralph. Yes,
that's right.
Yes, remember Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia, and
I increased your chocolate rations. Love me.
Yes, your chocolate rations have been increased. And hail to Oceania, and good evening and good night.
Night, everyone.
Good night.